Good evening, everyone. तुम तो 5 बजे के पहुंचे हुए हो यार. नाइस. किरण, मोहित, अहमद, सुधांशु, दर्शन, पाठक साहब वेकेशन से वापस आ गए. भूमिका, राजीव, दीक्षा, सुभाश्री. ओके, बाकी सब कहाँ हैं? मनीषा और मोनिशा. Kiran says, what is the difference between block sampling and stratified sampling? Kiran, stratified sampling is a wider term. You can always use block sampling after stratifying your population. Stratified sampling is basically dividing your population into heterogeneous population into homogeneous population. अलग अलग वैरायटी की पॉपुलेशन के अंदर एट्रीब्यूट्स हैं, उन सबको एक डिफरेंट एट्रीब्यूट्स के बेसिस पे आपने अलग अलग सब पॉपुलेशन से बांट दिया. ठीक. और जब आपने उनको बांटा तो आपने हर एक सब पॉपुलेशन के ऊपर एक अलग क्राइटेरिया लगाया. ठीक. आपने जो अलग क्राइटेरिया लगाया अलग अलग पॉपुलेशन के ऊपर, उसके बेसिस पे आपने सैम्पलिंग जो की थी उसके ऊपर आपने ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स किए. ठीक. ब्लॉक सैम्पलिंग इज different kind of sampling where you divide the population into blocks on no criteria, just 10 block on the basis of number, block of 10, block of 30, and you just resort to your audit procedures using sampling. ठीक. Block sampling can be used after stratification as well. Okay. These factors which need to be considered together: assume the order does not modify the approach to test of control or otherwise modify the nature or timing of substantive procedures in response to assessed risk. Justify the assumption with example. Himanshu, you are asking me to justify this with example, or is it a question, or is it an extract from your study mat? What is it? I need to, read the statement before this phrase and after this extract. Cluster sampling is a variation of block sampling only, Shivangi. So the factors which need to be considered: assume the auditor does not modify the approach to test of control or otherwise modify the nature or timing of substantive procedure in response to assessed risk. हाँ हिमांशु, अब ये क्या है? ये एक स्टेटमेंट है जिसका मतलब जानना चाहते हो आप, या what is it a question, exam question? What is it? अच्छा, it is a statement from the study material. Okay. ये फैक्टर्स जो आई थिंक आप उन फैक्टर्स की बात कर रहे हो जो हमने टेस्ट ऑफ कंट्रोल्स और टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल्स रिगार्डिंग बात की थी. सो these factors which we studied need to be considered together. The auditor has to consider these factors, assuming the auditor does not modify the approach to test of control or otherwise modify the nature or timing of substantive procedures in response to excess risk. Okay. So whatever risk the auditor has assessed, whatever audit approach is going to use to test the controls or test substantive procedures to test the details, he has to consider all these factors together while using sampling as a technique. But these factors should affect only how he has to extract the sample and not the NTE of his audit procedures, nature, timing, or extent of his audit procedures. This is what this statement intends to tell you. ठीक है हिमांशु? चलिए, किसी और को कोई डाउट जब तक हिमांशु रिप्लाई कर रहे हैं? एनीबडी एल्स हैविंग एनी डाउट्स फ्रॉम सैम्पलिंग? Otherwise, we'll start our next chapter, analytical procedures. Quite interesting, quite practical, and it usually is one of the favorite chapters for students. It's quite an easy chapter. Even if you get a 4 marks question, 5 marks question, or 8 marks question, this chapter is easy to understand and quite interesting. Pathak Saab, is everything well, or? Yes, Himanshu, yes. I mean, this should not affect his audit procedures. You know, these factors he should consider only while drawing samples, because audit procedures के बाद का step है. Dikshita, it is not a legal or mandatory requirement. Depends upon the auditor. Quite a subjective matter it is. चलिए, so हम स्टार्ट करते हैं. चैप्टर 8, एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स, राइट? इस चैप्टर में हमारे पास क्या है? एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स, ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स. ओह माय गॉड हिमांशु, अब मैं बीच में पढ़ता हूँ इसको. बहुत बड़ा ऐसे लिखा है तुमने. So, क्या मतलब बन रहा है ऐसे? एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स, लाइक procedures based upon or which help us to analyze. So basically, analytical means some logic is involved. Some logic is involved, right? We will understand what is analytical procedures, and we have a standard on auditing on this topic as well. Then the purpose and timing of analytical procedures. Auditors' use of analytical procedures are substantive procedures. So when analytical procedures are included in substantive procedures, what was that? Test of details. They become substantive analytical procedures. ठीक? Okay. And identifying the risk of material misstatement through preliminary analytical review procedures, properly designing, documenting, and evaluating the results of substantive analytical review procedures. So we'll be doing the meaning of analytical procedures, purpose and timing of analytical procedures, substantive analytical procedures, how can we rely on analytical procedures, and investigating the results. So you guys might have done common size balance sheet, comparative financial statements, ratios, graphs, trends, और आप लोगों ने वो भी किया होगा, linear equations and inequations. There are different kinds of analytical procedures which we use in auditing as well while dealing with financial figures. Mathematical and statistical operations जो हम logic basis पे analyze करते हैं अपने financial statements को, then they become analytical procedures. चलिए, since routine checks cannot be upon depended upon to disclose all the mistakes or manipulation that may exist in accounts, certain other procedures also have to be applied, like comparisons, trends, ratio analysis, in addition to reasonable tests. These collectively are known as overall tests. Reasonable tests, which are dependent upon auditors' professional judgment, reasoning, question and answer, logic. With the passage of tests, analytical procedures have acquired a lot of significance as substantive audit procedures. Essay कौन सा है इनका? Essay is 520. 500 audit evidence, 520 analytical procedures, 530 was sampling. On analytical procedure discusses the application of analytical procedures during an audit. Let us try to understand the concept discussed above with the help of the following illustration. What is the illustration? There is a person by the name of C. Amar. He wants to verify the payments made by XYZ Limited. So XYZ Limited ने कुछ payments किए हैं on account of building rent during financial year 2021. Financial year 2021 में XYZ Limited ने building rent पे लिया है, उसकी regarding payment की है rent की. It is an expense for them. The rent amounts to rupees 50,000 per month for the year. The monthly rent payments are considered consistent with the rent agreement. Whatever rent agreement they have agreed upon to in between them. As per that rent agreement, rupees 50,000 per month was to be paid by XYZ Limited to the landlord. However, the other companies in the similar industry are paying rent of 10,000 per month for a similar location. In that same area, in that same location, nearby area, nearby buildings are being rented for a rent of rupees 10,000 per month. But our company in question, it is paying 50,000 per month. How will applying the analytical procedures impact the verification process of such rental payments by XYZ Limited? Abhi kar kyun rahe hain? Why is it needed? So see, this is your profit and loss account. Tick. What do we have over here? Incomes, expenses, and profit. Let income be consistent, right? We have 100 as income or 1,000 as income. If we increase the expenses are more, profit would be less. If expenses are less, profit would be more. More profit means more tax, right? And less profits means less tax. More profit means more tax and less profits means less tax. Now they want to show less profits. They don't want to pay tax. What would they do? They will try to increase their expenses if they cannot play with their income. What would they do? What would they do? Examples like this. When in an area you can get a building on a rent of rupees 10,000 per month, you are paying rupees 50,000 per month. As an auditor, I would be more curious and I'll ask the client, if people in your area, other businessmen in your area are getting a building on rent at rupees 10,000, why did you choose to rent, to go for such an expensive rent? What is the reason behind this? Are you getting any extra facilities? Are you getting any extra facilities? You'll have to ask them. Now, let us move further with the analytical procedures. How analytical procedures will help us in this. See, if CA Amar checks in detail, the monthly rent payments, he may find that such payments are consistent with the rent agreement. 50,000 per month as a rent, and the same is getting reflected in the rent agreement. Right? Here, CA Amar may not be able to find out the inconsistency in the rent payment with respect to rent payment prevalent in the similar industry for rent of the similar location. If he goes by the rent agreement, they are doing as per the rent agreement. But if he is not aware, CA Amar is not aware of what is the prevalent rent in that area, he might miss on this aspect. If CA Amar applies analytical procedure, that is compare the rent payment by XYZ Limited with the similar payments made by companies in similar industry and similar area, he'll notice an inconsistency in such rent payments as the other companies are paying a very less monthly rent in similar industry for similar area. However, if CA Amar does not make such comparison and only checks the monthly payments and rent agreement of XYZ Limited, he would not have found such inconsistency, and as such, the misstatement may have remained undetected. So why is it said that auditor is a watchdog? We don't have to go by the papers only. We have to apply reason and logic as well. I should be very well aware of the industry trends also. ठीक? Here, what was it? He checked the industry trend analysis. What is the trend? Trend analysis is not with respect to history only, history and present. It is with respect to current market conditions as well. Now, meaning of analytical procedures. So, standard on auditing 520. It defines the term analytical procedures means evaluations of financial information through analysis of plausible relationships. What is the meaning of plausible? Plausible means that can be used relatively. That can be related anyhow. That can be related anyhow. Just a second, there's a technical glitch. I'll get it right. Okay, where were we? We were at plausible, right? That you can work upon with reason, plausible relationships. So if you want a GP ratio, you want gross profit over sales into 100. So with reason, these ratios can be used with each other. With reason, these ratios can be used with each other. Fine. When you can use two quantities or two elements, applying reason and logic to come to a conclusion, two or more, that is known as a plausible relationship, which you can understand with logic, right? Okay. So it says analytical procedures means evaluations of financial information through analysis of plausible relationships among both financial and non-financial data. Financial data that uses your figures. Give me examples of non-financial data. What are the examples of non-financial data? What are the some examples of non-financial data? Okay, Ahmed says employees. Internal controls, number of workers. Basically, organization, working culture, work atmosphere related to the organization. That is non-financial data. CCTV is good. Employees absenteeism, expertise of employees, your human resources, biometrics, laws and regulations. ठीक है. You're right. Analytical procedures also encompass such investigation as is necessary of identified fluctuations or relationships that are inconsistent with other relevant information or that differ from expected values by a significant amount. So analytical procedures also include investigation of fluctuations identified, fluctuation in expenses, fluctuation in profits, fluctuations in turnover, debtors recovery, sale of fixed assets, investments. And you have found some other relevant information as well. When you find fluctuations or relationships, you have identified them, and it is inconsistent with other information you have got from the books. Analytical procedures help us identify that as well. So here you have this definition. We have another example, then I'll discuss this definition. Analytical procedure involves analysis of relationship among financial and non-financial data. Explain with the help of an example as to how the statutory auditor of ABC Limited will analyze such relationship with respect to total wages paid by ABC Limited during the financial year 2021. So I'm coming to that, Darshan. I'm coming to that. That is what is example over here. So there is a CA of ABC Limited statutory auditor, and total wages, he wants to use analytical procedures. So as per SA 520, analytical procedure means evaluation of financial information through analysis of plausible relationships among both financial and non-financial data. Definition is here. He has to verify the total wages paid by the company having factories in various rates. He can verify the same by analyzing the relationship between wages per worker and total number of workers across the factory. Wages per worker and total number of workers. So, Darshan, the example will clear your financial and non-financial doubt. This is the formula. Total wages is equal to wages per worker into total number of workers. Here, wages per worker is the financial data that is in rupees. And total number of workers is a number which is a non-financial data. You all give me the examples. Sir, employee absenteeism. Sir, number of employees. That is non-financial data. So when the auditor is working on the absenteeism, labor turnover, number of workers, that is all not working on non-financial data. And we are talking in terms of monetary value, rupees, human resources, that becomes your financial data. Thus, the statutory auditor of ABC Limited is evaluating financial information, that is total wages paid in rupees, by analyzing the relationship between wages per worker, which is a financial data, and number of workers, which is a non-financial data. Take analytical procedures include the consideration of comparison of the entity's financial information as well as consideration of relationships. Now, Suraj asked me plausible relationship. I explained plausible relationship when two elements, relationship between two elements, two data, financial, either non-financial or financial, you can use them with certain relevance or logic, with certain relation. That is plausible relationship, which you can understand, which you can, logically prove. Those are plausible relationships. You cannot predict the weather in India by looking at the weather in Canada or Australia. That will not be a plausible relationship. So basically, analytical procedure is we compare entities' financial information, we consider relationships, and other procedures. These three parts make our analytical procedures. देखिए, examples of analytical procedures having consideration of comparisons of entities' financial information. So what was here? Comparison of entities' financial information. So one by one, every parts examples. Comparisons, consideration of relationships, other procedures. They make up analytical procedures. Examples of analytical procedures having consideration of comparisons of the entity's financial information are comparable information for prior periods. Example, CA Brijesh, while verifying the traveling expenses of PRT Limited, may compare the traveling expenses of current year amounting to rupees 2.50 lakhs with previous year, that was 2 lakhs, and infer means to conclude that there has been an increase of 25% in the traveling expense incurred by the company. CA Brijesh may compare such percentage increase with the trend of the earlier several years. Thus, CA Brijesh can use comparable information for prior periods of PRT Limited while applying analytical procedure with respect to the expenses incurred by the company. देखिए, okay, चलो, I have 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Turnover, profit, or let us take expenses and profit. ठीक, 100, 200, 300, 400. Let it be in lakhs. 50, 100, 150, 300. 50, 100, 150, 100. What happened? Profit increased, profit increased, profit decreased because expenses increased. Now I may compare previous 2 or 3 years. Expenses were increasing, but at a uniform rate. Here the expenses almost doubled. So what was the reason which led to decrease in profit? Sales were also increasing, but profit declined because expenses increased. Now the auditor would look into the increase in expenses over here. So we used comparison of net profits of 2 or more periods or net profit ratios, and we inferred that profit decreased, and we found out the reason that the expenses got increased. Now why did the expenses increase? The auditor would look into this. There could have been a purchase of a capital asset which led to increase in depreciation, aggressive selling and distribution expenses, any abnormal losses, increase in fixed factors, rent got increased, taken another go down on rent. There could be many factors. Starting with this, analytical procedures could help us understand, help us come to a conclusion by establishing a trend using prior periods. What is the increase or decrease? Is it justified? If it is justified, the auditor is fine with it. If it is not justified, the auditor might look into the reasons and it might lead him to a misstatement or material misstatement. Yeah, Varsha, that is just an example. I wanted to make you guys concentrate over here. That is just an example I used. ठीक, चलिए. Now, anticipated results of the entity, such as budgets or forecasts or expectations of the auditor, such as an estimation of depreciation. Similar industry information, such as comparison of the entity's ratio of sales to accounts receivable with industry averages or with other entities of comparable size in the same industry. What is anticipated results? Budgeted results, to predict the movement of expenses, to predict the sales, predict the profits in years to come on the basis of history. So how do you compare information? Using prior period figures. You can anticipate future figures. You can use similar industry information. What is the debtors turnover ratio in our industry? For example, I'm auditing a textile industry, textile company. I would see what is the actual standard rate in area or standard debtor recovery rate or GP rate, or what is the net profit rate in this particular area of any of the textile industry. I can compare with the industry averages or any other entity from the industry. Ahmed, that was just an example. Please, whatever examples I take, I don't establish financial relationships. My point is to make you understand the underlying concept. Don't go into FM. The ratio was same, the turnover would have increased. These factors I'm keeping consistent or keeping out of my logic. What was it? Comparison of entities' financial information, now consideration of relationships. Examples of analytical procedures having consideration of relation among elements of financial information that would be expected to conform to a predictable pattern based on the entity's experience, such as gross margin percentages. So as we see in an example, we saw in an example the net profit ratio. We could have example of relationship between financial information and non-financial information as well. For example, payroll cost to the number of employees. Per employee cost, we can get average cost. See the example over here. Year 2020, the client had inventory turnover ratio of 2.8, while the industry trend was 3.1. The gross margin was 22.5, and the gross margin of the industry was 23.6. In year 2021, it had inventory turnover of 2.9, and industry had the trend of 2.8. The gross margin was 22.7%, while the industry was standing at 22.2. So here in 29-20, the auditor could get into the reasons why the GP, the gross margin, is less than that of the industrial average. It could be any abnormal expenses, some unique expenses pertaining to this client, which led to a sharp a small decline in the percentage of gross margin than that of the industry. But somehow the client bucked up, and in the next year, it showed more profit than the industry. So these are little fluctuations. We understand these fluctuations owing to the economical and non-economical factors, but these are little fluctuations which we can, discuss with the client and find out the reason. If we compare it with the industry, or industry means group of similar firms in that particular area. It is not a result, Pathak Saab. It is not a result. You use professional skepticism is a quality to be used by the auditor while using analytical procedures as well, working with analytical procedures. Various methods may be used to perform analytical procedures. These methods range from performing simple comparisons to performing complex analysis using advanced statistical techniques. Analytical procedures may be applied to consolidated financial statements, components, and individual elements of information. What are consolidated financial statements? Have you people read law? Do you know about holding and subsidiary? Bhumika, payroll cost per employee, cost of your human resources. This is divided total wages paid by the number of employees. Per person cost, average cost. CTC, cost to the company. Any person around you, when he lands a job, he or she, what do you ask? What is the CTC? Offered by the company. Cost to the company. CTC is cost to the company. It is payroll cost. Definitely, Darshan, he can. It is completely subjective. He can even ask, or this much of fluctuation is quite normal. So we can compare information of entity with computation of entity also. Bhumika, your question is not clear to me. दोबारा rephrase करके इसे बताना please. So we can compare information of entity with computation of entities also. Okay, जिन लोगों ने कार्तिक, हिमांशु, इन लोगों ने अकाउंट्स पढ़ लिया है. Holding, the financial statements of holding are combined with the financial statements of subsidiary, and we get one set of integrated statements that is known as consolidated financial statements. So you can apply your analytical procedures on consolidated financial statements as well. Consolidated financial statements, components, and individual items of information as well. You can say that, Bhumika, but in accounting term, we use that for holding and subsidiary only. Thus, we can say that analytical procedures may be segregated into the following major types. What are these types? Comparison of client and industry data. As we saw in the above example, comparison of gross margins of client and that of the industry. Comparison of client data with similar period, prior period data. अगर आप लोगों ने अकाउंट्स में वो चैप्टर किया हुआ है इंश्योरेंस क्लेम्स, if you have gone through that chapter, you have done that chapter, you'll get to know how do you compare the information of the present with the past information of the client. You know, you used to prepare memorandum trading account, then you applied the percentage of current trading account, and then you get that closing stock value on the date of fire. That is what you are doing. You're using analytical procedures only. See? So you can compare the information of your client with that of the industry which he belongs to. Second comparison could be, we can compare client's own data with his data of the similar period, prior period. If we want to compare the turnover during the winters, so we'll take the third quarter of year 22-23, we'll compare it with the third quarter sales of year 21-22. So similar prior period data. Comparison of client data with client determined expected results. We prepare budgets, we estimate, the client estimates that this year we project that we could make a rise in profit of almost by 2%, 10%. Last year our profit was 20 lakhs. This year it is going to be 22 lakhs. We expect, right? We expect this. Client determines that the client can expect a profit rise by 10%. Now, when the actual results arrive, a comparison can be made of the actual and the estimated or anticipated ones. While auditing the books of the client, the auditor may also develop some expectations. The turnover seems to be good. The expenses are low. This year, the profit could be higher than the last year. But while actually coming down to the profit, the auditor finds that the profit percentage has declined. What could be the reason? Turnover was better, increased, expenses got decreased, and even if increased, not in that fashion that would lead to the decline in profit. So what could have been the reasons that, as per my expectations, profit should have been higher than previous year? The profit percentage, but it is not. So auditor also developed some expectations while working, while auditing the data. Comparison of client data with expected results using non-financial data. So non-financial data, you give me the examples. Employee, it might be there that there is huge labor turnover. Salaries paid were higher than previous year because to deal with the problem of labor turnover, they would have to employ more number of people. Salaries could have increased. This might have led to decrease in profits. So you can also use known financial data as well to compare the actual results with the expected results. So these are the 5 types of analytical procedures we are going to deal in this particular chapter. Definitely, Bhumika, you can. That is what industry is, telecom industry. In your example, it is telecom industry. You can compare industry trend as well. This is how competition works. These are how different telecom companies work on their plans. This is how Coca-Cola and Pepsi work. ठीक? Domino's, Pizza Hut, KFC, McD. You know, if a particular, you just witness this all around you. If you visit a grocery store or if you visit eating outlet, you'll find if a certain brand has launched a pizza, they've launched a pizza at 99 rupees. The other brand would also make it available at 99 and not 100. 49, 49. If they have come up with a product at 49, they'll come up another type of product at 49. This is how the competition works. If that particular beverage bottle is at price at 20 rupees, the competitor will not price it at 21 or 22. They'll keep it at 20 only. Just because of the competition and industry trend. ठीक, चलिए आगे. SA 520 analytical procedures. So SA 520 deals with the auditor's use of analytical procedures as substantive procedures and as procedures near the end of the audit that assist the auditor when forming an overall conclusion on the financial statements. During the audit, auditor can use them, but basically these procedures are used near the end of the audit. While the auditor is near to completing his audit, he can use these ratios, comparisons, and trends, which further solidify his conclusion, whatever he has concluded. He needs evidence. Whatever I have concluded, I need evidence with me, audit evidence. Thus helping him form an overall conclusion on the financial statements. And analytical procedures find place as risk assessment procedures in SA 315 as well. ठीक है? Analytical procedures as risk assessment procedures, you have found them in SA 315 as well. SA 330 includes requirements and guidance regarding the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedure in response to excess risk. These audit procedures may include substantive or analytical procedures. What do you say? You have found them as risk assessment procedures in SA 315. SA 330 also includes requirements and guidance regarding NTE of audit procedures. You identify and assess risks in SA 315, and then you plan your audit procedures in response to these assessed risks. These procedures may include substantive audit procedures, analytical procedures. So this is the scope of SA 520. What is the objective of the auditor? To obtain relevant means which are required, and reliable, which can be trusted upon audit evidence when using substantive analytical procedures, and to design and perform analytical procedures near the end of the audit that assist the auditor when forming an overall conclusion as to whether the financial statement are consistent with the auditor's understanding of the entity. Whatever the auditor has understood while working within the entity, while performing these audit procedures, while discussing with the management, interviewing the clients, checking the books, testing the controls, to give strength to his observation and conclusion, he designs and performs analytical procedures near the end of the audit. So just collect audit evidence. nahi Karthik, that is a market trend. That is a market trend with many limitations. With many of the limitations, you can definitely use it, but your example that cannot be used as a part of analytical procedure. You definitely use analytical procedures in market as well while making technical or fundamental analysis, right? To that. Purpose of analytical procedures. Analytical procedures use comparisons and relationships to assess whether account balances or other data appear reasonable. There should not be window dressing, right? There should not be something which cannot be relied upon. They should look reasonable as far as the condition of the client is concerned. For instance, example, establishing the relationship that exists between certain balances included in the balance sheet and the statement of profit and loss, and comparing them with those that existed within the same set of balances in the previous year. This is an example. Reconciling the physical balances of assets with the relevant financial record. Obtaining of account from bankers, account receivables and account payables, and reconciling with relevant balances in books of account. Confirming amounts of outstanding income and expenses by preparing reconciliation statements. These are helpful in detection of unusual state of affairs and mistakes in the accounts. So it says, you guys don't know about window dressing? What is window dressing? Pathak Sahab, window dressing is a term used in accounts where near the end of the financial year, the awesome organizations just increase or decrease the expenses or play with the balances on their own just to show a good picture of the accounts. Just near end, they'll make some transfer entries or book adjustments, which will make the profit look good. That is window dressing. You know, when you, in your home, when you dress the window so that nobody can look inside. झरोके से कोई देख ना पाए, उसको ढक दिया. विंडो ड्रेसिंग इज दैट. कोई बाहर से अंदर ना देख पाए. बाहर से लगे विंडो इज वेरी क्लीन, कपड़े से ढकी हुई है. दैट इज विंडो ड्रेसिंग. बट अंदर it is not all well. Yes, Darshan, manipulation of accounts only. I hope, Himanshu, that is clear and why it has been termed window dressing. Okay, what do I say? You can compare information, right? For example, I could compare. Yes, Himanshu. Yes. Hey, that is my balance sheet. That is my profit and loss. Check. Expenses, income, assets, liabilities. So what do you want? You want debtors, or you would want bad debts percentage? You can establish a relationship from an item from profit and loss and from an item from the balance sheet. You can get it for 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Now, if you see, the percentage has been increasing. You will discuss with the management why are bad debts increasing. What would you check? You'll check, has the organization planned some control on credit sales? What is the recovery mechanism? How has it affected the operating cycle of the organization? Are operations good? So with just one ratio comparing of different periods, you could get all this and discuss it with the management. Now coming on to reconciliation. Suppose you make an FD. This is previous financial year. Okay, let us say this is 23. This is current financial year. Now the FD is going to mature on 30th of June 23. And they have shown interest on FD. Now we know that it has to be shown on accrual basis. You cannot show the whole interest, right? You cannot show the whole interest as which would be available to us on this date. We have to take interest till 31st of March over here for the previous financial year. So what we do, we'll calculate on the basis of percentage of interest, rate of interest, use the compounding formula, and on proportionate basis, we'll calculate the interest till here. Now that would be interest which pertains to next financial year, next 3 months. Right? That is what reconciliation is. Darshan, reconciliation of statements. You'll ask for a certificate from the bank. How much interest has been given to the client on this particular FD or on this account? You'll reconcile your working with this certificate. That is reconciliation. And this reconciliation you can also look upon for prior periods. How much interest was credited in prior period? Total interest for that particular financial year should be credited to that particular year's financial statements. This is what it says. Obtaining of account from bankers, account receivables and account payables, and reconciling with relevant balances in books of account. Confirming amounts of outstanding income and expenses by preparing reconciliation statement. You all used to prepare, if I'm not wrong, outstanding expenses. Accrued income. Prepaid expenses. What was it? Accrual basis adjustment, These were accrual adjustments. Has the entity worked out them properly? You reconcile them with banks, advances, lenders, debtors, creditors. That is what reconciliation they are talking about. I hope, Darshan, I'm clear. Let us see an example. In XYZ Limited, after applying analytical procedures as comparison of GP ratio with that of the previous year, it is discovered that there has been a fall in the ratio. GP has declined. Therefore, it became necessary for the auditor to make further inquiries, as it may be due to pilferage of inventories, misappropriation of a part of the sale proceeds, a change in the cost of sales without a corresponding increase in the sales price. What could be the reasons? The GP ratio has fallen. Auditor feels that there could be many reasons. I'll have to work upon which is the actual reason. There could be pilferage of inventories. What is pilferage? What is pilferage, people? Tell me, what is pilferage? Okay, theft. What else? चोरी. सैनी साहब कह रहे हैं चोरी. Okay. First reason the auditor suspected could be pilferage. Pilferage means theft in small quantities. Let us take an example in our theft. थोड़ी थोड़ी अमाउंट में चोरी करते रहना, पता नहीं लगता है. धीरे धीरे से कुछ कुछ चुराते रहना. लास्ट में अमाउंट बहुत बड़ी हो जाती है, पर डेली बेसिस पे धीरे धीरे कुछ करते हैं. दैट इज pilferage. Let us connect it with an example. Rainy season, and you have asked your mom, you requested your mom to prepare pakoras. Your mom is making pakoras in the kitchen, but you are hungry. What would you do? क्या करूंगा मैं? जाऊंगा धीरे धीरे. Mom is making pakoras. She'll put it in a bowl and bring it for the whole family. I'll go, and mom is just making. She's putting it aside, and I'll एक लिया, दो लिया, तीन लिया, or she's making laddus. एक लिया, दो लिया, तीन लिया, चार लिया. She has made 20 laddus, but when she's checking upon them, only 5 are left. आप एक बार आए, दो बार आए, तीन बार आए, चार बार आए, किचन में आकर खा गए, ले गए. You know, if you could recollect it with the example of why Christian Kanhaiya is called Makhan Choor. थोड़ी थोड़ी अमाउंट में माखन लेकर और वो इधर उधर भागते रहते थे और लास्ट में मैया देखती थी माखन रहता ही नहीं था. The pilferage is what? When stock is, stock को चुराया जाता है. Stock is theft of stock in smaller quantities on a routine basis. तो क्या होगा, धीरे धीरे आपका जो स्टॉक होगा वो स्टॉक कम रह जाएगा. एक्चुअली सेल्स उतनी जितनी आपने करी कंसिस्टेंट, स्टॉक कम हो गया, बाकी सब वैसा ही है. स्टॉक आपका धीरे धीरे कम हो गया क्योंकि वो सेल में कन्वर्ट हुआ नहीं. स्टॉक डिड नॉट गेट कन्वर्टेड इनटू सेल. व्हाई? बिकॉज इट वाज बीइंग पिल्फर्ड विद. देखिए, मैथमेटिकली वी आर एक्सप्लेनिंग एवरीथिंग यूनिफॉर्म ओवर हियर, दिस यूनिफॉर्म ओवर हियर. इफ देयर इज अ डिक्लाइन इन दिस, माय ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट वुड डिक्रीज. What was the second reason? Increase in cost of, goods sold or cost of sales. There might be an increase in, if everything is, consistent. This is consistent, this is consistent, this is consistent, this is consistent, stock is there. My direct expenses got increased. The GP will fall. Or there is a decline in sales. Everything consistent. There is a decline in sales or selling price. GP will fall. These are the reasons which she is telling us. It may be due to pilferage of inventories, misappropriation of a part of the sale proceeds, a change in the cost of sales without a corresponding increase in the sales price. Misappropriation of a part of the sale proceeds means the sales, whatever amount we have got from over here, suppose cash or what, stock has been sold, but it has not found a place in the sales of the entity. Someone has misappropriated it with. Misappropriated means the stock has been sold, the money has been taken on personal account, but not in the account of the company. It could be anyone in the sales department or anybody with having a higher authority. That is called misappropriation. Stock is being sold, but not getting converted into sales in the books will lead to a decrease in gross profit or the profit. Now these are the assumptions by the auditor. Take on verifying the balances of sundry account receivables by obtaining the confirmation of the statements of account, it will be possible for the auditor to find out whether the discrepancy in the balance of an account receivable is due to the failure to debit his account with the cost of goods supplied to him, or is the result of non-adjustment of a remittance for. Simple reconciliation. A person A's balance in my books of account is 2000. When I asked for a confirmation from the other side, person A, he gave me a statement which states he owes 2200 rupees to the organization. Why is there a difference of 200 rupees? It could be because we also supplied him some stock of 200 rupees, but we failed to debit his account. We had not yet debited his account by 200 rupees, so that the total becomes 2000 plus 200, 2200. Or the statement received from him shows 1800, but it still stands at 2000 in our books of account. It might be the reason that he has remitted 200 rupees via UPI, Google Pay, and we have not taken that into account. Also, whether in the case of account payable, the discrepancy is due to failure to afford him credit for one or more consignment or failure to debit him with the amount of remittance. Same is the case with creditors. हमने उसको पैसा भेज दिया बट अपनी बुक्स में अकाउंट फॉर नहीं किया, या उससे स्टॉक आया है पर हमने अपनी बुक्स में उसे क्रेडिट नहीं दिया, बैलेंस इंक्रीज नहीं किया. In case of inventories of raw material in stores, At the end of the year, any excess or shortages shall be detected. The investigation of their causes might disclose that the shortages were a result of misappropriation of inventory, pilferage, or that the excess were due to requisitions having been entered before the inventories were issued. The factory wanted some more of raw material. A note was sent to the storekeeper. The material is yet to be issued to the factory. It has not left the godown. But in books, it has been entered that the factory holds this much of stock. पेन बनाती है फैक्ट्री, 20 kg इंक, 20 लीटर्स इंक की रिक्वायरमेंट है. गोडाउन में भेजा गया नोट दैट ईआरपी में डाला गया, वी रिक्वायर 20 liters of ink. The accounts department debited factory by 20 liters of ink. The ink is still in the godown. This could be the reason that the stock, physical stock in the factory is not matching with the stock in books of account as on 31st March, because the ink was delivered on 1st April from the godown to the factory premises. But in books, on the basis of ERP, we have written that recorded 20 liters supplied to factory from godown. By reconciling the amounts of interest and dividends collected with the amounts which had accrued due and outstanding for payment, the mistake in any finite adjustment of income. I gave you the example of FD. Same lies with interest. Yes. Okay. Ahmed is right. Employees taking some goods without reporting fraudulently, pilferage. Sir, you are foodie. Foodie for sure. But I'll take it in large quantities. Darshan jitna marji khao, koi dikkat nahi hai. Suppose a 3000 kg of flour is available for processing for further production, but amount like 1 kg theft. हाँ ठीक है कार्तिक, you're right. Small quantities. 3000 किलो का मटेरियल चाहिए और 1 किलो को निकाल कर ले गया अपनी रोटियां सेकने के लिए. Good example, Karthik. So you could understand all these are those adjustments which we have done in final accounts, whether in +2 foundation or +1 foundation or graduation. ये वो सब एडजस्टमेंट्स हैं, वो सब चीजें हैं जो आप अपनी फाइनल अकाउंट से क्वेश्चंस में करते थे. अब वो ऑडिटर उनको एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स बनाकर यूज कर रहा है अपने प्रोसीजर्स में. ठीक, तो सब तुम्हें लग रहा है यस वी हैव डेजावू टाइप फीलिंग आ रही है. अभी हम कहीं पहले भी पढ़ चुके हैं, कर चुके हैं. आ रही है ना डेजावू टाइप फीलिंग. चलिए. The overall test can be extended for making interform and intraform comparison of trading results. So difference between मोहित इज सेइंग दर्शन ज्यादा खाएगा तो मम्मी के साथ अकाउंट मैच नहीं होगा. हाँ, अब तुम सब मम्मी के पकौड़े और लड्डू है ना, ये ना आज क्लास के बाद सब अपनी मम्मी से डिमांड करने लग जाओ. वो पकौड़े और लड्डू की एग्जांपल दी थी, याद आ गया हमें पकौड़े और लड्डू खाने. एग्जाम के पास के पढ़ता हुआ स्टूडेंट हो ना, उसको क्रेविंग्स बहुत होती हैं. What is the difference between interform and intraform comparison? ये बताइए मेरे को. What is the difference between interform and intraform comparison? What is interform and what is intraform? Suraj, intra is inside, you know. When you compare the results or financial information or data of within your organization, Okay, so you know, so this is my industrial area in my city. Let it be Chandigarh, industrial area or industry hub. Quite many companies. That is company A, B, C. Okay, let it be. चलिए कंपनी छोड़िए, डोमिनोज और पिज्जा हट लेते हैं. अब मत बोला पिज्जा खाने का मन कर गया. ठीक, फाइन. अब अगर डोमिनोज और पिज्जा हट, इनके जो पब्लिश रिजल्ट्स होते हैं, पब्लिश रिजल्ट्स मींस their annual statements, what profit they made, because people are investing in the companies which have taken franchise of Domino's and Pizza Hut. When you make a comparison of one firm with other, this is known as interfirm comparison. ठीक, this is known as interfirm comparison. When you make comparison of the same firm of its data of different years or different periods, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. When we compare one firm, results of one firm with another firm in the industry, this is interfirm comparison. When we compare data within the same organization, not industry, within the same organization of different periods or different bases, that is known as intrafirm comparison. Intrafirm means within the organization. Interfirm means within the industry. चलिए, ये सबको पता है. ठीक, if balances included in statement of profit and loss of an entity are compared with those contained in the statement on profit or loss for the same period of another entity engaged in the same trade and working under similar circumstances, I give you the example of Domino's and Pizza Hut, it would be possible to find out the cause of the variation in the rate of profitability that exists. Domino's might have come up with, newer products or at a reasonable rates. Pizza Hut might be providing you good variety, or there could be personal choices as well. So while comparing for the industry, you will look upon the reasons why there is a deviation, a variation from the industry trend. Similarly, it is also possible to compare the balances on the statement of profits and loss with that of the previous period. It could be quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 4. It would be possible to find out the reasons for increase or decrease in the amount of profits for those years. So quarter 3, October to December, is usually festive season in India. Many festivals fall in that particular quarter. So on New Year, English New Year falls on January 1. So these organizations expect an increase in their sales, in their turnover in that particular quarter. When you compare quarter 3 to quarter 2, 1 or 4, you'll always find quarter 3 turnover is higher than other quarters. You are making intra-firm comparison. हाँ Mohit, like interstate and intrastate supply. by setting up certain expenses ratios on the basis of balances included in the statement of profit and loss for the year under audit, comparing them with the same ratios for the previous year, it is possible to ascertain the extent of increase or decrease in various items of expenditure in relation to sales and that of product. If you have done FM ratio analysis, net operating profit ratio, operating profit ratio, operating expenses ratio, selling and distribution expenses ratio, administrative expenses ratio, cost of goods sold, net profit ratio. So these different kind of ratios from the profit and loss statement of profit and loss, we can compare these ratios with that of the previous year. हमारा net profit गिर गया है, क्यों? Operating expenses पिछली बार से बढ़ गए हैं. Selling and distribution expenses पिछली बार से बढ़ गए हैं. हमारा profit बढ़ गया है because sales बढ़ी हैं, but we have put a control on our administration expenses also. If differences are found to be material means significant, the auditor would ascertain the reasons thereof and assess whether the accounts have been manipulated to inflate or suppress profits. चलिए मेरे को एक एग्जांपल तो समझ में आई. मैनिपुलेट किए उन्होंने प्रॉफिट्स, लास्ट में सप्रेस कर दिए प्रॉफिट्स, एक्सपेंसेस इन्फ्लेट कर दिए, प्रॉफिट सप्रेस हो गए. क्यों? क्योंकि वो टैक्स कम देना चाहते हैं. ठीक. एक्सपेंसेस डिफ्लेट करके, कम करके प्रॉफिट इन्फ्लेट कर दिया, प्रॉफिट बढ़ा दिया. क्यों? व्हाट कुड बी रीजन? व्हाई वुड एनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वुड लाइक टू शो गुड प्रॉफिट? ये हो रहा है आजकल हमारे आसपास. काफी रिपोर्ट्स आ रही हैं, काफी न्यूज आ रही है अलग अलग कंपनीज की, that their actual position is quite disastrous, but they are showing good profits in the books. So what could be the reasons for that? Showing exceptional profits in the books which are not there actually. They are bubble profits. I term them bubble profits. Once pricked, फूट जाएगा bubble. It will burst. Good, right, Shubham, to attract more investors. Very good, Varsha, to show to financiers. Karthik, materially defective or immateriality means they are not that relevant as far as our audit is concerned. छोटी मोटी बातें, ठीक, छोटी मोटी बातें, they are not that effective. They're not that relevant for our audit. They are not going to affect anyway on the company's financial health. That is immaterial or materially defective. हाँ सूरज, हाँ बिल्कुल. Shareholder expectations, bankers. Amrit, that is suppressing profits. Competitors, yeah, to flex on competitors. Bilkul, bilkul. Very good, very good. That is why they inflate profits. An abnormal fall in the cost of manufacture or that in the administrative cost, apart from economy and expenses, there could be no provision or less provision for expenses incurred in the year. When it is suspected, the auditor should compare the entries in the outstanding book with those in the previous year. He must also check the vouchers for 1 month immediately before the close of the following years to verify that none of the expenses in the accounts under audit have been charged to the accounts of the following years. Basically, you check the expenses of February and March. If we are following accrual basis, which is required in our country, and they are showing electricity expenses of only 11 months, the expenses of March are being shown in the next year. They are working on 11-month basis because some expenses, some payments are made in the month of April with respect to the month of March. They are being shown in the next year. No provisions are being made. No outstanding expenses account is being made. दिखा के accrual working on cash basis. So year-end entries to be checked are must. Year-end adjustment to be checked are must, and especially the figures from the month of March and April of the same year, same calendar year. If you are working upon you're auditing the books of for the year financial year 22-23, you'll have to check the expenses from March 23 and April 23, that they should be properly segregated as on the basis of time. March expenses, if paid in April, should not be debited to the account of next year. They should be shown as outstanding expenses in the balance sheet of the previous year itself, or a provision should be made. What example it gives? Now it says, often it is possible to independently verify the correctness of some of the items of the expenses into a statement of profit and loss. For example, the cost of importing goods which are subjected to an ad valorem duty at uniform rate can be verified from the amount of duty paid. Similarly, a quantity of sugar sold by sugar mill can be verified independently from the amount of GST paid. See, what does it say? It says कुछ चीजें हैं जो independently verify की जा सकती हैं. कैसे verify की जा सकती है? For example, it says we have imported goods. Goods have been imported. Let us take an example. अब तुम लोग actual GST पे मत जाना प्लीज. मैंने 1 लाख के गुड्स इंपोर्ट किए. 10% is duty. Ad valorem means on the basis of value. On the basis of value, duty is charged. Value was 1 lakh. So import duty, I'm not going into the details, basic custom duty and other duties and all XYZ. No. Let it be 10,000. So my goods were 1,10,000. Cost of my goods. For example, the client shows me that up to 8 lakh, 80,000 of my purchases are imported goods. We can check this, or sometimes we can say he has given us the purchases, the client owner has given us the purchases, but not bifurcated it into what are indigenous goods purchased, what were the imported goods. But from the customs, from the returns filed by the client company, custom returns filed, I could very well know that the customs duty paid by the company was somewhere around, I could say 1 lakh or 1,10,000. The company had paid 1,10,000 custom duty. Or you can say, let us say 10 lakh only. Confuse ho jaoge tum. 10 lakh. I can work backwards. The rate of duty is 10%. The company has paid 10 lakh 10,000, 10 lakh. 10 lakh divided by 10%. 1 crore. One crore is the cost of imported goods that I can very well bifurcate. ठीक? This is what it intended to say, that cost of imported goods can be back calculated from the amount of duty paid. If we are not able, if we've not got the bifurcation from the company, how much is the value of imported goods, we can calculate it on the basis of customs duty paid. Because customs duty is ad valorem on the basis of value. What is the next thing it says? You can also understand what is the quantity of sugar sold by the sugarcane company, sugar mill, from GST returns. In GST returns, it would have its sales in INR at a particular point of time, or you can take the average rate of sugar. Although sugar's rate fluctuates, but for a particular period, you can assume that particular per kg or per quintal of sugar rate, divide it by that rate for a particular period or an average rate, you can get the quantity of sugar sold by the sugar mill for that particular financial year. Basic mathematical and statistical relationships, these are only analytical procedures. This is what our example intended to say. Similarly, the amount of any income or expense which has a direct relationship with the amount of profits or sales can be verified independently. Commission paid to a manager, ये हम फाइनल अकाउंट में बहुत करते थे, आप कंपनी अकाउंट में भी कर रहे हैं. After profits, before charging commission, after charging commission, net profits. Commission paid to a selling agent as a percentage of sales. Such calculation of ratios, trends, and comparisons is also termed as analytical review because it involves analysis to analyze things. Thus, it is important to note that analytical procedures may help identify the existence of unusual transactions or events and amounts, ratios, and trends that might indicate matters that have audit implications. Unusual or unexpected relationships that are identified may assist the auditor in identifying risk of material misstatement, especially risk of material misstatement due to fraud. How could it be? Suppose while with the quantity of sugar we got, let it be 100 quintals, right, as per the sales. But the company's records show that sugar has been sold at 80 quintals. Variations, where is this 20 quintals? As per the GST returns, we have got 100 quintals. Actually, the sales amount to 80 quintals when physically checked. Where is this 20 quintals? Auditor will look into this. Now, our cost for the imported goods was 1 crore. But on detailed investigation, when we force the client to give us the bifurcation of imported goods, it comes out near about 92 lakhs. Where is this difference of 8 lakhs? The client organization needs to tell us, satisfy us. These are the unusual fluctuations or figures we find using these analytical procedures, and then check upon the management for answers, for reasoning to these differences, and if found unreasonable, it could lead to misstatements or material misstatements. Chaliye, any doubts till now? I suppose Rajiv Kumar Singh, you got to know ad valorem का क्या मतलब है? We'll take a break before we move to topic 2.2, timing of analytical procedures. It is 7:35. Let's be back by 7:50. A break of 15 minutes. A break of 15 minutes. We'll be back by 7:50. And if there are any queries or doubts, you can leave them in the query session. Want to have pakoras or laddus, you can have in your query session. You can't have pizza or something else. It will take time to deliver. Okay. When we come back, we resume. We'll start with 2.2. ठीक, चलिए. Okay everyone, we are back. खाया ही तुम पकौड़े और लड्डू, तो आ जाओ वापस, आगे चैप्टर फिनिश करें. You all have returned, came back. Give me proof. मनीषा आ गई, भूमिका आ गई. What about others? सर बस लास्ट पकौड़ा रह गया, खा रहे हैं. मांग लेना, नो पिलफ्रेज. Any doubts? Whenever I, teach this chapter or we read this chapter, I'm always go down the memory lane into the chapter of final accounts when we used to do final accounts adjustment. Himanshu, I'll look into that matter and try to resolve it as soon as possible. Okay? But surely we'll try to resolve it by tomorrow. ठीक पाठक साहब? राजीव से पकौड़ा नहीं बना था सर. पकौड़े बने नहीं, क्या करें? Okay. Whatever it be, माखन, पकौड़ा, whatever you like. चलो, पकौड़ों से एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स याद रहेगा every time. चलिए, timing of analytical procedures. So, experienced auditors use analytical procedures in all stages of the audit. Analytical procedures are required in the planning phase, and it is often done during the testing phase. In addition to these, are also required during the completion phase. देखिए, planning phase में, testing phase में, completion phase में. Audit के overall audit के different phases में आप analytical procedures को कहाँ use करते हैं? This is what we are going to study in detail one by one. So analytical procedures in planning the audit. चलिए, अब हम सब audit पे चलते हैं. हाँ, let us make a team. ठीक, आज एक टीम बनाते हैं, नेक्स्ट सेशन में दूसरी टीम बनाएंगे. तो कौन कौन है मेरी टीम में? आई एम द प्रिंसिपल, आई एम द ऑडिटर. तो हु आर माय आर्टिकल्स? चलिए, 3 आर्टिकल्स में ले रहा हूं, दर्शन, हिमांशु एंड मनीषा. ठीक, दर्शन, हिमांशु एंड मनीषा आर माय आर्टिकल ट्रेनीज एंड a part of my engagement team, the audit team. So we have to plan audit planning for the audit of a particular client. We are in the planning phase. In the planning stage, we are having a roundtable conference. Mr. Pathak, Darshan, Manisha, we all are sitting, the principal, and we are discussing, planning how are we going to proceed with the audit. This is a planning stage. In the planning stage, analytical procedures assist the auditor. Now here, auditor, I myself, the auditor, and the audit team is also the auditor. My articles represent me. So they are the auditors as well. In understanding the client's business and in identifying areas of potential risk by indicating aspects of and developments in the entity's business of which he was previously unaware. Shubham, I'm not fired you. I'll take you up in the next session. Shubham, Mohit, I'll take you up in my team in the next session in audit of a different entity. I have reserved you for different entities audit. So planning phase में client का business और which could be the areas of potential risk. अब अगर खाने की बात चल रही है तो let us take confectionery business. ठीक, हलवाई का भी काम है और confectionery business है, a kneading point or something, and we are auditing the books, the records, financial records. So we are planning the client's business What could be the what could be the areas of potential risk? Potential risk, pilferage could be there. 2 जलेबी चोरी हुई, 3 जलेबी चोरी हुई, रोज का आधा किलो दूध लीटर कोई निकाल रहा है, लेकर जा रहा है. सो हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे हैं अपने कॉन्फ्रेंस रूम में बैठ के, प्लान कर रहे हैं दैट वी अंडरस्टैंड द बिजनेस ऑफ द क्लाइंट. नाउ व्हाट कुड बी द पोटेंशियल एरियाज ऑफ रिस्क. This information will assist the auditor in determining the nature, timing, and extent of his other audit procedures. Analytical procedures in planning the audit use both financial data and non-financial information. What could be the non-financial information in our case? What could be the non-financial information in our case? Okay, come on. Manisha, Darshan, Himanshu, you are sitting with me. I need to tell the class what we have discussed. What is the planning? What could be the non-financial information in our case? While auditing the records of a confectioner or a halwai or eating point. It says number of employees, well, square feet of selling space, volume of goods produced, and similar information. Other these are human values, Karthik. But what could be the other information, like who are the vendors, right? What quality goods are being procured, raw material is being procured. Is the organization entering into the global market, importing goods or exporting goods? What is the shelf life of major products dealt by the store? To understand shelf life, or the time till which the product remains suitable to be eaten. जल्दी एक्सपायर हो सकता है, लंबी एक्सपायरी है, ये सब चीजें. So what does the client deal in various kinds of goods? Sweets, snacks, then packed food, confectionery items. For example, analytical procedures may help the auditor during the planning stage to determine the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedures that will be used to obtain audit evidence of specific account balances or classes of transactions. I could go in the evening to check what is the footfall of people over there at that particular point. कितने लोग चाट खाने निकले हैं इवनिंग में. As an auditor, I could visit over their team, obviously during office hours. जितनी सेल्स है, क्या उतनी बुक्स में दिखाई जा रही है? और मेरी ऑडिट टीम में से सब लॉयल रहेंगे, कोई भी गोलगप्पों के पीछे गलत रिपोर्टिंग नहीं करेगा. क्लाइंट प्रॉमिस करते भी आपको 2 प्लेट गोलगप्पे फ्री, और आप रिपोर्टिंग ना करो मेरे को. जो भी मेरे साथ कॉन्फ्रेंस रूम में बैठे हैं, ध्यान रखें इस बात का. दिस इज काइंड ऑफ फाइनेंशियल एंड नॉन फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन. हाउ मच इज द फुटफॉल, कितना रश है, what is the internal control mechanism on the sales. You go to the counter, you pay for your product, you are given a token, you give that token to the person at a different desk. He takes up the token, checks it, and gives you the food, whatever you want, packed food or food to be consumed over there. We could get an analysis using the financial as well as non-financial information as to how do we need to plan our audit, what should be the timing of our audit procedures, to what extent we have to perform our audit procedures. We do not have to disturb the client all the time round. We'll have to let him work. and we have to plan our work accordingly. Now, what are substantive analytical procedures? Good examples given were Shah, Himanshu, Siddhi. Good. The auditor's substantive procedures at the assertion level may be test of details. Substantive analytical procedures are a combination of both. The decision about which audit procedure to perform, including whether to use substantive analytical procedure, is based on auditor's judgment about the expected effectiveness and efficiency of the available audit procedures to reduce audit risk at the assertion level to an acceptably low level. We have done this. The auditor has to use his judgment, which audit procedures, which analytical procedures, when to use, to what extent, so that we achieve high efficiency as well as high effectiveness of our procedures. Only then we'll be able to reduce our audit risk to an acceptably low level. The auditor may inquire of management as to the availability and reliability of information needed to apply substantive analytical procedures and the results of such analytical procedures performed by the entity. When you use analytical procedures while testing details, that is known as substantive analytical procedures. It may be effective to use analytical data prepared by management, provided the auditor is satisfied that such data is properly prepared. Manisha, I'll keep you at back end. If you can't control yourself in food, you see food. I'll keep you at back end. So what could be the factors to low? I'll show you an example of substantive analytical procedures with ratios. You have done ratio analysis. See, I hope you all can see ratios on my screen. See, we have debt equity ratio, we have debt service coverage ratio, return on equity, inventory turnover ratio, trade receivable turnover ratio, trade payable turnover ratio, net capital turnover ratio, net ratio, return on capital employed. We can get this ratio for a particular period or for the whole financial year as well. What was in at the year 2022, 21, what is the percentage change? What is the explanation into this percentage change? This is how we work upon analytical procedures. We'll come to this example later on. Let us move ahead. Factors to be considered for substantive audit procedures. What factors do we need to consider? These are the factors for using substantive audit procedures. Availability of data, disaggregation, breaking up the data into different, parts, account type, source of our data, predictability, nature of assertion, inherent risk, or what can go wrong. Inherent risk is something, that risk which is going to be there. What can go wrong? We already know that wrong is already there. We just need to think upon it. What can go wrong? The auditor should consider the following factors for substantive audit procedures. Now, one by one, all such factors. Now, this can be a question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 marks question. What factors as an auditor would you consider for substantive audit procedures? These are the factors. Availability of data. The availability of reliable and relevant data will facilitate effective, because if the data provided to us is reliable, we can trust upon it. If we apply certain tests to it, we find it good. We have, checked the data with the entries in the software or with the ledgers, and we found it good. That yes, it matches with the books. And relevant data. What is relevant for my audit? As far as my financial statements audit is concerned, I don't want to know what happened in the board meeting, what was the decision taken. First of all, I am working on my financial figures. If there are any deviations or something, that I can go further and ask what were the minutes of the board of directors meeting. At a particular point of time, what data is relevant to me is my subjective view. The degree of disaggregation in available data can directly affect the degree of its usefulness in detecting misstatements. If you are giving me figure of closing stock, I will not be able to apply my ratios on it. The closing stock should be raw material, work in progress, and finished goods. Raw material as in, dairy products. If you're making something, work in progress, if you're making something from the dairy product sweets, as on the date of audit or as on the date of financial statements, what products were still being worked upon. Final products, it could be the manufactured products as well in the factory, or the traded products as well, goods imported, packed confectionery products, final goods. You have to give me the separation of those items. So to what level the data has been disaggregated, broken into parts. That will help me, not much longer parts, details and details and details, till a level which will help me analyze the data properly. Now, substantive analytical procedures are more useful for certain types of accounts than for others. Income statement accounts tend to be more predictable because they reflect accumulated transaction over a period, whereas balance sheet accounts represent the net effect of transactions at the point in time or are subject to greater magnificent adjustment. अब प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट पूरा साल चलता रहता है हमारा, सेल हुई, परचेज हुई, एक्सपेंसेस हुई, पूरा डेली बेसिस पे चलता है. बैलेंस शीट इज प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर डे एंड. Whatever effect, accumulated effect, profit and loss income statement had throughout the year, on the last date of the year, that is influenced in a balance sheet. The financial working, the operations part, and financial health. Operations part is shown by the profit and loss account, and financial health as on a particular date is shown by the balance sheet. So it says sometimes analytical procedures are easy to use with income statement rather than between the balance sheet items elements. For example, it also gives us an example. We can analyze data to understand the relationship to another account, and through this disaggregate the transactions flowing to and from the balance sheet account. For example, sales and cash receipts flowing through trade receivables. We made credit sales. With the use of debtors from the balance sheet, you can get credit sales, and you can easily bifurcate your sales in the profit and loss account into credit and cash sales. Right? So we can use balances from the balance sheet to understand their relationship with the profit and loss items, and we can disaggregate the transactions flowing to and from the balance sheet. The sales include credit sales as well as cash sales. The balance of the movement in debtors will help me analyze the level of credit sales. If I go through the transactions and disaggregate it, I can disaggregate my sales into cash and credit sales. Some classes of transactions tend to be more predictable because they consist of numerous similar transactions, whereas the transactions recorded by non-routine and estimation or significant classes of transactions are often subject to management judgment and therefore more difficult to predict. Dividend, it is difficult to predict. Dividend is difficult to predict. Profit can be predicted. But in turn, dividend is difficult to predict. What would the management decide? Working on a particular project, taking up on a particular project by the company. Our client I'm discussing with Manisha, Himanshu, and Darshan. I'd say our client is going to get a bigger contract with this company. All the events of the company during the year would be managed by our client. All the food would be provided by our client to every event. So I can predict profit is going to be very high. But I would also predict that to make up to or to fulfill the requirements of the clients further, our client had to have to engage more people, employ more people. The math also gives us example. Transactions of routine nature like transactions related to sales and purchase are predictable and repetitive in nature. Sales are more in the evening than in the morning. Sales are more in the Sales and purchases are more in the festive period, October to December month, than other part of the year. Therefore, on such data analytical procedures can be efficiently applied. However, significant classes transactions are those classes of transactions in a company's operations that are key to the financial statements and are not frequent in nature. For example, expenditure on research and advertisement is not of routine nature and are subject to management judgment and therefore more difficult to predict. New idea of selling imported bakery products in the city. So it came out with huge advertisements, advertisement costs, banners, pamphlets, and all. But that was for once. Once the people get to know, get publicized by word of mouth, now it doesn't need to distribute pamphlets or hoardings or banners. It's fine. That was one-time investment of advertisement. Significant classes of transactions. Was working on a new type of dairy product, researching upon it, has imported a new machine to produce that particular sweet. Capital expenditure. So there are some different significant classes of transactions which are of non-routine or non-recurring nature, and we cannot use them in our substantive analytical procedure. Predictability. Substantive analytical procedures are more appropriate when an account balance or relationship between items of data are predictable. Example, between sales and cost of sales, or between trade receivables and cash receipts. More the trade receivables, more the cash receipts will get in the period to come. But in current period, we have not got much of cash sales. A predictable relationship is one that may be reasonably expected to exist and continue over time, which is universal and which is going to continue over time. Debtors, credit sales, cash sales, relationship between sales and cost of sales profit. This is of routine nature, right? That is predictability. Nature of assertion. Substantive analytical procedures may be more effective in providing evidence for some assertions. Example, completeness or valuations. You have read about these assertions in your chapter 1, and you are going to read about these assertions in detail with respect to each and every element of the financial statements. Assertions related to debtors, assertions related to creditors, to your sales, to your purchases, to your expenses, to your various incomes. All assertions with respect to your elements from the financial statements in detail in the next chapter, chapter 9. So valuation was with respect to the value of that element. How has that element been recording? At what rate sales have been recorded? At what rate closing stock has been valued? Fixed assets have been valued. Are they complete in all aspect? Like the accrual concept in case of income. Then for others, example, rights and obligations, like with respect to balance sheet items. What are our rights over the fixed assets? What are our obligations towards our loans? towards our creditors. So it says when it comes to assertions like rights and obligations, analytical procedures find no much use. They are something which is absolute. But where we need to apply our mind, our logic, our completeness and valuation. Here, they find much use, substantive analytical procedures. So he's trying to bring home the point that substantive analytical procedures find more use in profit and loss items rather than balance sheet items. It is not saying that balance sheet items we cannot use analytical procedures, but more use in profit and loss elements. Predictive analytical procedures using data analytics can be used to address completeness, valuation, and occurrence. Inherent risk or what can go wrong. When we are designing audit procedures to address an inherent risk or what can go wrong, we consider the nature of the risk of material misstatement in order to determine if a substantive analytical procedure can be used to obtain audit evidence. When inherent risk is higher, we may design tests of details to address the higher inherent risk. When significant risks have been identified, audit evidence obtained solely from substantive analytical procedures is unlikely to be sufficient. So it says, if you find that the inherent risk is high, you cannot depend solely upon substantive analytical procedures. We may design test of details to address higher inherent risk. What could be the inherent risk in our case? Guys, Manisha, Darshan, Himanshu, what could be the inherent risk in our case? The lower shelf life of the products, wastage, the raw material getting waste, दूध खराब हो गया, pilferage could be there. Some risks which cannot be avoided, normal loss, it cannot be avoided, inherent risk. It is a risk of the industry of our client. Example, when side agreements with respect to revenue recognition have been identified as a significant or fraud risk, it is unlikely that an analysis of sales compared to cash receipts or cost of sales would be appropriate to respond to that risk. Hanji, what are side agreements? Yes, Darshan, possibility of cash defalcations by the cashier because many of the receipts in eating points, confectionaries, they are on cash basis. As of today, we are using that scanner, barcode or UPI and Paytm or other apps, Google Pay types. Candies against chutta. Days of the past. After COVID, if it is 7 rupees, we'll pay by code. Contamination of food. Very good, Manisha. And what could I as an auditor find over there is adulteration by my client. I hope the quality is being maintained by my client because the cost, the purchases in books are going to be get recorded at the invoice values. But the client organization might be resorting to adulteration. Cash measurement. So it says when side agreements with respect to revenue recognition have been identified as a significant or fraud risk, it is unlikely that an analysis of sales compared to cash receipts or costs would be appropriate to respond to that. What are side agreements? For example, my client has got an event. It's got a contract, works contract, that the food to be supplied in the event would be supplied by you, raw material your, people yours, and we just want the finished product, food in the our event, corporate event, and we'll pay you on the basis of works contract. So I enter into a side agreement. No, side agreements are basically collateral agreements with some other concern for the leftover food. Leftover food is not the that jhuta food, but you could say whatever I could supply to them, what was sufficient for them, but I had surplus quantity with me. I had prepared surplus food. Some surplus food was left with me. The food is all good. It is still there with me. For that surplus food, I could enter into a side agreement with another restaurant or a dhaba or any other, vendor, that I'll supply you this much of food at this much of rate. These are side agreements, collateral agreements. It could be with the same company as well as a different customer. When auditor finds that there is a significant fraud risk in those side agreements, whether the agreement conditions are being complied with or not, whether they are fictitious or they are not being recorded, this is something which is out of context. If you're not able to locate, spot it, or anything about it in the financial statements, so your analytical procedures on book figures of sales compared to cash or cost of sales would be appropriate to respond to that risk. That is highly unlikely. We will not find a reason. What is the reason? For example, for that particular surplus food, the sales are not being recorded in books, but the raw material was used from the factory, the labor was used from the factory, expenses are being charged in the factory, but side revenue is not being credited. High risk. Muhammad, fictitious means jhuta, not existing. Hi, Manshu, you can see it as a collateral agreement as well, like collateral contracts. This could also be an example of side agreement. Till this date, the contract price is this. After this date, the prices are going to rise. My contract price would be this. But that is somewhat very, I would say, technical example, which makes it difficult to understand a particular context in which it is being used. Varsha, which ratio are you talking about? Okay, even if you have some doubt regarding side agreements, I'll take up an example in the beginning of next session, right, with respect to side agreements. If you understood the side agreements, I'll take that up in that particular example. It's quite a normal case, nothing to be worried about. So we'll be doing this much only for today. We'll start in the next session with techniques available as substantive analytical procedures. what techniques are available to us as substantive analytical procedures. We'll start with topic 3.2. Any doubts as of now, or you may read whatever we have read till 8.11 page from the study mat. You can read till page number 8.11 from your study mat, and whatever doubts you have, we can take them up in the beginning of the next session. अरे काम तो करो, दर्शन स्टाइपेंड मांग रहा है. अभी सिर्फ ऑडिट प्लानिंग हुई है, अभी वी हैव नॉट कंप्लीटेड द ऑडिट. अभी से स्टाइपेंड. You know what is said about the articles, the trainees? कर्म किए जा, फल की इच्छा मत कर. ऑडिट किए जा, स्टाइपेंड की इच्छा मत कर, मिल जाएगा. Yes, Shubham, quite appropriate. Quite appropriate, Shubham. It could be sale of byproducts. I'm going to take that as an example in the next session. Sale of byproducts is also side agreement. Yes, Shubham. ओके, हिमांशु ने अपना ऐसे रिपीट किया. लेट मी टेक इट. मैं देखने वाला था. Okay, Himanshu, your doubt is on replacement item, right? When a particular audit procedure is not applicable to a selected item, then we could apply that procedure on a replacement item. इसे मैंने लास्ट टाइम एक एग्जांपल ली थी रिप्लेसमेंट आइटम के ऊपर. जब हम एक पर्टिकुलर एलिमेंट के ऊपर हम अपना ऑडिट प्रोसीजर नहीं लगा सकते, हम एक रिप्लेसमेंट आइटम के ऊपर अपना ऑडिट प्रोसीजर लगाएंगे. आपको याद है हमने जब चैप्टर 6 किया था हिमांशु, लास्ट में हमने एक फ्लो चार्ट किया था जिसमें हमने बात की थी कंपनसेटिंग कंट्रोल्स की. जो कंट्रोल्स होने चाहिए वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में दे हैव नॉट पुट इनटू प्लेस, सो हमारे ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स पे लग नहीं पा रहे हैं. Then we were asked that you test compensating controls. So what did we test? हमने क्या एग्जांपल ली थी? CCTVs were not working, but what the biometrics working? The entry to different rooms was secured by biometrics. So if I was not able to apply my audit procedures on the CCTV cameras, was I able to apply my audit procedures on the replacement item? That would have been security access. So the example you have taken of debtors, I don't find it that appropriate over here, replacement item. If it could be from a particular category of debtors, for example, you have divided your 100 debtors into categories of 10 each, and you are picking one debtor from each category. And overall, you will be applying your audit procedures on 10 debtors only. Fine. Now from the A category, one debtor has died. You will pick another debtor from that particular category of 10 debtors. That is a replacement item. You'll go after the 90, but you'll pick another debtor from the same category. I hope, Himanshu, I'm clear. Shubham, that is why I am eyeing upon you to be a part of the team the next time. You'll take control over Manisha and Darshan. Okay, Pathak Saab, that's clear. Done for that. I'll hope you'll read till here by day after tomorrow, and we'll complete our chapter 8 in the next session with some practice, right? Any doubts? We'll take up in the beginning of the next session, right? Take care till then. Good night, everyone. और बहुत ज़्यादा पकौड़े और लड्डू नहीं खाने हैं. खाने हैं तो एक्सरसाइज भी करनी है. ठीक है? चलिए, गुड नाइट, टेक केयर.